So the big question I will ask you today is, what even is NXT anymore? It's like part real show and part developmental show, but I'm actually a big fan of it because you get to see the stars of tomorrow learning in motion. That should never be a thing, but I appreciate that it is. But it has gone through so many different guises. I, Simon Miller here at What Culture, thought we'd go back to the very first class and rank them all and see what they're up to today. Now, there's a lot of these, so put some coffee on, put your tush in a seat, now let's go. Number 54, Anya. Now I'm not really sure what happened to Anya, but she basically had 5 non-televised matches on house show loops, and she went away. Now I'm not sure this was the plan at the start, because in one of her very last matches, she teamed with Yotzi Hashu to take on Angelo Dawkins and Charlotte Flair, and get this, she won. That's right. Do not forget though, this was basically during a time when NXT used to be FCW, and only just made the transition, which meant a lot of people did get lost in the shuffle. I think Anya was one of those. Number 53, Danny. What is it with 4-letter female names in the first ever NXT period? She was another body that only worked a few shows though before she was released, and in fact a lot of her fighting actually came in battle royals. Why not? Her last match did see her team with Sasha Banks to take on Charlotte Flair and Audrey Marie. And once again, she was on the winning side. Just goes to show wins and losses count for nada. Interestingly too, after she did leave in-ring competition, she worked for WWHQ for a while. And after that, I can't tell you, I don't know. Number 52, Chad Baxter. So this was the first ever NXT name before NX naming became a thing. I mean, Chad Baxter, that's a wonderful name. He suffered the same fate as most other people we have talked about today because he only worked 2 matches in NXT before I suppose the phone rang and he got released. That was in 2012, which meant he was one of the people that fell victim to Big E Langston, who was crushing fools at this time. He also has a loss on his record to one Trent Beretta. The one you really want to find though is when he did a big old fatal 4-way tag match with a bunch of names you will recognize. And who was his partner? Number 51, Adam Mercer. That's right. Now Adam really did have that WWE look, but I can only presume that somebody wasn't very high on him because before NXT started touring, he was out the door. I mean, Cage Match has him listed with just 15 matches, although he was another body that got totally crushed by Big E. I'm not sure he was ever even in the ring for 2 minutes before he did suffer a very serious head and neck injury, although once again that did happen when he was sharing the squared circle with Eric Rowan, so you can't take that away from him. He worked with some big dudes. Number 50, Tack. Another great name. Although actually his full name was Brandon Carter. Should have just called him Tack. Now given how he did look and the fact that he had a run in the NFL, I think if the appropriate people had seen him before he did get released, well man, we could be telling a different story this day. He at the very least would have been given a shot on the main roster. Instead of 2013, after a bunch of social media messages where he started talking about the Tack revolution and how he wasn't just another cookie cutter wrestler, whatever that means, he got released. So I doubt this does tie in, but a lot of people he did name drop are actually being very successful today. Maybe he got in the hot water with the wrong dudes. Number 49, Chase Donovan. According to Cage Match, Chase worked over 100 matches during his wrestling career, but only 8 of them came in NXT. Now Donovan was another guy that actually looked the part, meaning it may have been his experience which cost him, because this was during that time when WWE was like, we want brand new people that we can mold. Whereas I suppose Donovan had some bad habits. It could be why he only lasted 8 months, although he does have 2 television losses here. One to Big E and one to Roman Reigns. Let's face it, there ain't a bad couple of people to lose to. Number 48, Dante Dash. Now Dante was back with FCW in 2012, hung around for a little bit in NXT in 2013, when once again he was fired. I don't think he ever did any wrestling again. He was another guy that was tangling with the dudes from tomorrow because he took on Big E, he took on Bray Wyatt, and he took on Dean Ambrose. Now, he didn't win any of those matches, but at least he was in the ring with them. His last proper loss too was to Eric Rowan, and he also teamed with Baron Corbin for a while, where they took on Enzo and Cass. And yes, we'll talk about them later. Number 47, Garrett Dylan. Now, you may know him better as Joey Christopherson, because this guy arrived on the indie scenes in 2008, and he lasted forever. I mean, his NXT run only went from 2012 to 2013, where he was mostly booked to lose, or go 50-50 in singles matches. We've talked about that before. He really did face the best of the best though, because he was tangling with the likes of FTR, Chris Harrow, and Cory Graves. But after he did suffer one last defeat, he was another guy when NXT just said bye-bye. There was some hope because in 2014 he was brought back as enhancement talent, but that also went nowhere, which once again is why NXT can be a little weird. Sometimes there's no rhyme or reason. Number 46, Kaye Turner. So this is the real-life sister of Alicia Fox. Now you know. Now her entire wrestling run did happen in NXT, although she did pop up in a house show for TNA in 2012. And look, she did find some success For a little while, she was the FCW Women's Champion. For whatever reason, though, when Triple H did take over developmental, she decided that wrestling wasn't for her, so she did leave the industry, and now she's doing whatever she is doing. Mostly, I just hope she's happy. Let's not forget, friends, sports entertainment isn't for everyone. Number 45, Kenneth Cameron. An original member of the Ascension tag team. Today, you'll probably know him better as Bram. That's right, it's that guy. Now, he did have somewhat of a controversial exit in 2012 because there were some reports about what was happening in his personal life, but he still landed in TNA when he had a damn good run. Sadly, there seems to be a few more issues in 2015, although the man himself has come out and apologized. And just for some trivia, he was also married to Charlotte Flair, and right now you can see him in the NWA as his wrestling career continues to go pretty well. I mean, he's been going a long ass time, which is the whole point. Number 44, Jay Bronson. Now, you may not remember Jay Bronson, but he's another guy that had an incredibly long career because he started in 2002 and I think hung up his boots in 2022. I could do maths, that's 20 years. Across those 2 decades, he mostly worked as PJ Friedman, but you could see him in All Japan, MLW, and at one point in 2006 on WWE TV, he got squished by Gene Snitsky. For whatever reason, he then left wrestling before he was tempted back due to entering the FCW NXT scene, where he did get 2 wins, and then he too was released. Number 43, Jake Carter. So the main piece of this news is that this is the child of one big Van Vader. He looked nothing like his dad, but was still able to team with Vader in the early days. Now, let's face it, we can call a spade a spade. It's probably how he ended up in the system in the first place. Now, Carter never really found his place, and eventually when NXT did become NXT, he was quietly released. But it's not like he ended it there. He was wrestling up to a couple of years ago. Because in 2021, for Wrestling Theology Fellowship, I believe they're called, he won a Battle Royal. And if you want something that's right up to date, do you know where you can see him? When Vader got inducted into the Hall of Fame. Number 42, Raquel Diaz. Another second generation star. This was Shaul Guerrero, or the daughter of Eddie. Talk about having some massive shoes to fill. Now, the machine really did get behind her, and she did become the FDW champion. Plus, she was putting on bangers, especially for the time. Don't forget, around about 2010, 2011, 2012, if you were a female in WWE, everything was working against you. In 2012, though, due to some personal issues, she did ask for her release, and even though she came back a year later, it didn't work out, she left again. That was basically it. Number 41, Nick Rogers. Now, Nick Rogers did find some internet fame when some super sleuths realized, wait a minute, this guy does cut a good promo, but he just keeps doing the same one over and over and over again. Many people then decided he worked out how to game the system, but look, fair play to this guy. Over a year period, he had a good old 20 matches in NXT, and yeah, sure, maybe it was because his character was more over than his wrestling. That's the point of sports entertainment sometimes. You can tick one box and everything else falls in place. He didn't last though and eventually was shown the door, but look man, talk about maximizing your minutes. He did as good as he could do with the tools that were afforded to him. Or something. Number 40, Memo Montenegro. As El Hero del Dos Caras, this guy has worked everywhere since he was released from NXT back in 2012. Given that he is 12 years deep now into his career, you'd have to figure that NXT was just his intro to the business. And once again, I have some more trivia for you, because this is the brother of one Alberto Del Rio. He only wrestled a total of 8 times over 6 months in the WWE system, but now again, you go to cagematch.com, he has wrestled over 300 times, so he's doing all right. Number 39, Richie Steamboat. Now this was always going to be hard to fill once again, because this was the son of Ricky Steamboat, somebody who a lot of people go, he was the best babyface of all time. Now, he was another one in the NXT system for years before he was released in 2012, but he did have this really good feud with Chris Hero, which eventually he won. Richie even left after getting another victory, but the real problem with Steamboat is that he suffered injury after injury. I think after a while, WWE were just like, look, it's going to happen again. We've got to wash our hands of it. Very sadly, I think this affected Richie's overall wrestling too, because he never came back to the sport. Begs the question, what could this have been? Number 38, Lincoln Broderick. So Lincoln looked great, he could work great. For some reason, it just never clicked. Because he wrestled twice for NXT and once for FCW before everybody agreed this wasn't going well. And he went back to OVW where he'd been getting his licks in before. Before NXT went all black and gold as well, Lincoln was also doing an alright tag team with Big E. But then yeah, when the big rebrand did come, for whatever reason, this didn't work out. So really, this may have been another case of a dude who was let go way too soon, and if he had remained in the system, well, maybe now he'd be on Raw or SmackDown too. We will never know. Number 37, Audrey Marie. So NXT seemed perfect for Audrey Marie, because even though the main roster was still being all like, ha ha ha, we're not going to let women wrestle, she was having great matches down in developmental, was basically showing people how it could be done. She also teamed with and fought the likes of Charlotte Flair, Paige, Emma, and Sasha Banks, and for a while it really looked like she was going to follow in their footsteps. For whatever reason though, this didn't translate to the success that WWE officials wanted, and she was let go in 2013. What do I know? Absolutely nothing. It feels like a mistake. Number 36, Brandon Traven. As Brian Breaker, this guy worked everywhere. Like his home was basically the American independent scene, and he even went as far as damn Japan. I mean, you can see him have matches in NJPW and Noah when he finally got signed by NXT, and within a year, he was gone too. He also never won because he was beaten by the likes of Roman Reigns, Big E, Xavier Woods, and Rusev. Although look, once he was out the door, he still wrestled till 2017. That ain't so bad. Number 35, Skyler Moon. Now, according to the internet, Moon has had over 100 matches, and only 4 of them came in NXT. Working mostly as Buggy Nova between 2010 and 2020, she was an indie standout, and she carried this on in NXT, because she was having great matches against the likes of Paige and Emma. After taking a few years off wrestling completely, she returned in 2015 to the indie scene, and listen how she went out. Quintessential Wrestling ran a show called Thank You Buggy to say goodbye, and I'm sorry, that doesn't just happen, you have to have left your mark. Number 34, Oliver Gray. So I can actually speak personally on this one because Oliver Gray today is Joel Redman, and he is still absolutely kicking ass on the UK independent scene. Redman has also had multiple runs in Japan, and of course you may remember way back when in NXT, he was part of the first ever NXT Tag Team Champions, and his partner was none other than Adrian Neville, or Pack. They even defeated the Wyatt family in the tournament for those championships, when very sadly Joel suffered a horrible knee injury that took him out of the ring for an entire year. When he was ready to come back, he was released, I suppose, because the promotion has moved on, but again, he continues to leave his legacy. He is now teaching wrestling as well at a school here in Britain, so if you want to learn how to do the grappling, well, you should probably go there. Number 33, Brad Maddox. So we all remember this very strange story of one Brad Maddox. Because he did make it to the main roster, and he was chosen as the guy to screw over Ryback in that world title match in 2012 when he did a fast count. From here, Maddox also became the general manager, but he was treated like such a joke that when we got to the next round of cuts, he was included in them. But before that, he also got trapped in a cave. Just go look it up on Google. And look, I suppose he did leave something in my memory, because way back when, I actually quite liked Brad Maddox. But what a strange, strange tale. Number 32, Leo Krueger. And here's another guy that will make your brain go, oh, it's him, because Leo Krueger on the main roster became Adam Rose. Because surely you remember how the Rosebuds used to dance to the ring, and this got so over, even if it was just the entrance, Rose actually got a teeny little mini push. Sadly though, as ever, WWE thought this was just a joke and we never capitalized on it. When we got to 2016 and he was let go. But actually, if you go back to NXT and watch his Leo Krueger work, he basically comes across like a psychopath. Maybe we should have at least given that a go on a Raw or SmackDown. Number 31, Bo Dallas. So it still annoys me that Bo Dallas was doing this amazing work in NXT with his Bo Leave gimmick when we got to the main roster and we never pulled the trigger properly. He was also the guy chosen to end Big E's world title reign, and it worked so well, because even though he was meant to be a super mega babyface, because he was so tongue-in-cheek, eventually the fans turned on him. Bo was like, all right, I will be an over-the-top goober. The whole thing was just the best. And now look, Dallas was totally fine when he did get called up to the main roster, but it always felt like we were holding back. Plus, he kept being put in joke tag teams. He was eventually released, but thankfully brought back in 2021, and while he hasn't done anything since then, given that he is the brother of Bray Wyatt, just keep him on the paid books forever. Why the flub not? Number 30, Conor O'Brien. Better known as Conor from the Ascension, this is another story. You're like, why? Why didn't we do more? Because down at NXT, that tag team was so good. And then what did we do on the main roster? We treated them like a joke. You see the pattern. Their tag team title run down at NXT was so damn good too, because Triple H went all Paul Heyman on our asses, where he pushed the strengths and hid the weaknesses. And then yeah, when they got to Raw and SmackDown, they kept being embarrassed by old tag teams. And what did that tell the audience? You don't need to care about these guys. It also means we jump forward to number 29, Rick Victor, because that was his tag team partner. So just copy and paste the whole thing. Both were also released in 2019, but we will get specific here. It was in 2015 when they got beaten up by the New Age Outlaws and the APA. And of course, by that stage, both of those teams well, they were just old hat. I don't mean that in a bad way, it's just called life. It was just totally reductive, and soon after this they were put into a comedy position. I didn't like this at all. I was such a fan of the Ascension on NXT that we did nothing. But 28, Briley Pierce. Or Ryan Nemeth as you know him now. That's right, it's Dolph Ziggler's brother. He was indeed dubbed Briley Pierce and had a 2-year run in NXT and FCW. And his major highlight there is that he did go into a battle royal to become the #1 contender for Big E's title. He didn't win. In modern times, Nemeth can be seen on AEW TV, so he has done very well for himself. I'm sure as far as he's concerned, his career can only get better and better. He's still young. Watch this space. Number 27, Mojo Rawley. And the best thing I can say about Mojo Rawley is that he needs no introduction. That dude maximized his minutes. He also won the Andre the Giant Battle Memorial Raw with help from his friend Rob Gronkowski. And he was in Hype Bros, and for a small while he yelled at himself in the mirror. But at least I remember it. The real shame is that he was in the system for a 10-year period and we never actually gave him a proper push when that's right, he woke up one day and he was released. As of me talking to, his last match in WWE was his last wrestling match ever, and I hope that does change. I don't know what it was about Mojo, I just really liked him. Number 26, Jason Jordan. What a crazy run Jason Jordan had. Because his tag team with Chad Gable was borderline all-time because they were so good. When he did get to the main roster and we were told he was Kurt Angle's illegitimate son. Alright then. Sadly that story was well too ridiculous to have any real credence given to it. But shortly after this, he did suffer a neck injury, he was on the shelves for ages, we never saw him in the ring again. I think the WWE understood how much he had to offer though, because ever since that point he has been an agent, and by all accounts on the internet, he does a damn fantastic job. So methinks that Jason may have been a prodigy, it was all just cut a little bit short. Number 25, Sophia Cortez. Sophia Cortez had a year-long run in the FCW NXT system from 2012 to 2013, before she became Ivelisse. So you've probably seen her work, she's appeared for everyone. I would guess that her highlight was her Lucha Underground career, and then yeah, she did have some matches for All Elite Wrestling, and she left under a cloud of controversy. You should probably just go look that up. This sort of happened in WWE too, because Sophia went to management and said, you should look at Bill DeMott, he's not doing things right down there. And there must have been some truth to this, because then more people complained, and eventually Bill was let go. There is a lot to her story though, and I have a feeling one day more may come out. But 24, Danny Burch. Now, not only did Danny Burch have some appearances pre-NXT, he was also there for Black and Gold, and he popped up in NXT UK. This dude had an amazing run. He also had a real moment in that tournament back in 2017 when he started teaming with Oney Lorcan, based on the fact that before this they had a feud and essentially kicked the shit out of each other. It really did work though, because those two did have some absolute bangers against the Undisputed Era before 2021 rolled around and he got released. When you do compare him with a lot of other UK workers though, this dude totally smashed it. What a career to say that you had. Number 23, Summer Rae. That's right, Summer Rae did indeed start in NXT. Her best strength was her personality, which she totally lent on, and this was another person that understood the phrase maximize your minutes, because she got so much praise down there. Eventually, as we know, she got called up to the main roster. In developmental, she also had that BFF team with Charlotte Flair and Paige, and then yeah, on Raw, we did that thing with Rusev and Lana and Dolph Ziggler. Was really bizarre, but once again, did Summer did a bad job? No, she did not. When Total Divas came along, she was also a pivotal part of that before eventually she too got her walking papers. I always thought we could have found a slot for Ray. Alas, we didn't. Number 22, Eric Rowan. If you want to see proof that the NXT system works, just go look at Eric Rowan. Because he just got better and better as the years went by before he did become an integral part of the Wyatt family. I mean, that stable doesn't work without Eric. We also remember what happened between him and Luke Harper as the Bludgeon Brothers. He also had that story where he had a pet spider that Drew McIntyre eventually killed. I don't know. Eric also got released in April 2020, and I still think this was dumb, even more so because he was never brought back. He could work with anybody. Something we should probably rethink. Number 21, Aiden English. Honestly, Aiden English was done totally dirty by WWE Creative, because no matter what they gave him, he hit a home run. Because he went all the way from 2012 before getting to the main roster with the Vaude villains. And even though they got over, what did WWE management do? They split them up. He then found his way to become best friends with Rusev when Rusev Day took off and everybody loved it. And what did WWE management do? They split them up. Aiden was so damn smart, he tried to switch to commentary on 205 Live to show, hey man, I can do everything here, when he was let go in 2020. But ever since then, he has gone to TNA, where he has been totally great. Goes to show. Number 20, Cassius Ohno. All known as Chris Hero on the indie scene, let's not muck around here, brother. He is one of the most influential pro wrestlers in terms of the modern day. He was a late arrival in the FCW days when he did shift across to NXT, when from nowhere he got released. Now, Cassius Ohno, as he was known back then, said it came down to his conditioning, but he did come back a few years later, so suppose he sorted it out. This was 2017 and we never did much with him in NXT, although he did go to NXT UK, where once again he was like, haha, I'm really good at wrestling, when he was shown the door again. Today he is working behind the scenes at AEW while also being active on the indie scene, and honestly, if you were on a show with this guy, go and talk to him, you will learn. Number 19, Emma. At NXT arrival in 2014, Emma and Paige had a match that was so good, everybody raised their eyebrows. I'm like, man, why aren't we doing this on the main roster? At the time, it was the total opposite of what women in WWE were allowed to do. And because Emma was playing that over-the-top kind of dipsy, happy-go-lucky character, the NXT fans loved her. She was a super over babyface. So a call up to the main roster was totally earned, but then Emma was given no patience. And we all remember the Emma to Emmalina thing. That's one of the dumbest things we've ever done. She was let go in 2017 before being brought back in 2020, when WWE once again did nothing for her and released her. But seriously, go and watch her work in TNA between them. She can still go. Hopefully one day she does come back and she gets a proper shot at it. Number 18, Mike Dolan. Or Tyler Breeze. We all know his story. Once again, WWE didn't know what they did have, and they released him, and that was dumb. We also just decided to pull the trigger on him too late when he was called up to Raw and SmackDown, because don't forget, who did Triple H choose to fight Jushin Thunder Liger when he came to NXT? It was Tyler Breeze, and that's not a fluke. Even when he teamed with Fandango as the Fashion Police, he was just so damn entertaining. This one irks me a little bit. We never did right by Mr. Breeze. Number 17, Byron Saxton. So this is someone who doesn't get enough credit, because Byron Saxton was one of these guys that stopped wrestling. He joined the announce and commentary team. He's been great ever since. He's also been with the WWE over 15 years, because he started with FCW back in 2007. I mean, once again, that's not something that just happened. Saxton is also a joy to watch because he is just so damn happy and he has such a positive way about him, which, just as a smaller side, is something I think sports entertainment needs more of. But I also think he's an inspirational dude. Even if your wrestling career does come to an end, well, there's a bunch of other things you can do. Number 16, Colin Cassidy. Also known as Big Cass, who had a massive run with his tag team partner Enzo Amore. This kind of sums up Triple H's first stab at NXT. He wanted it to be basically a WWE PWG inspired product, but he also understands the sports entertainment side of things, especially those who could cut promos with call and response speeches. That's why Enzo and Cass got so over. They were perfect to open a show as well before they did get called up to the main roster. And again, they weren't the best wrestlers in the world, but my word, it just worked. As ever though, Vince McMahon eventually decided to split them up, which was the beginning of the end, when Big Cass did get released, and very sadly he went through some personal issues, but he came out the other side and now he's doing his best work in AEW. You love to see it. Number 15, Judas Delin. So Judas Delin was fine. He did the job, he seemed like a competent wrestler, but when he did get released from NXT, he went to the indie scene and he created the persona known as Luchasaurus. From that point on, there's been no looking back. Now, his stint in NXT between 2012 and 2013 did see him take a lot of losses, but again, as soon as he was out the door, he basically reinvented himself, and now he has been with AEW since day one. As far as I'm concerned, is an integral part of it. I mean, he's been with Jungle Boy, and now he's doing all that work with Christian Cage and the Patriarchy. He's another guy that should inspire others, because even if you are shown the door, there's still so many opportunities out there. Number 14, CJ Parker, which is actually very similar to CJ Parker, because he decided to leave NXT, he became Juice Robinson, he went to Japan, and as soon as he realized, oh, wait a minute, I need to change again, he then joined AEW. So every year since, he's just been doing a great job. As I've been talking to you, he's been out with a serious injury too, but just look how many times he's tweaked his character just enough. Juice Robinson is very good at his job. Number 13, Paige. I mean, what else could you say about Paige? She's had a movie about her. She's been signed since she was like 8 years old or something, and she even had a movie made about her. She's also the first ever women's NXT champion and the youngest ever FCW women's champion, and she had a bunch of classic matches on the main roster. She's done everything. We've already talked about that match with Emma, which did change the world as well. Very sadly, as we do remember, she suffered a serious neck injury. It looked like she was never coming back. Turned out that wasn't the case, and now she is smashing it in AEW. So this is just a nice story, and I'll always take more of those. Number 12, Cory Graves. In December 2014, Cory Graves very sadly stood in a wrestling ring and said, hey, my days as an in-ring competitor are over. I can't go anymore. sacked. Thing is though, he was then presented as an opportunity to be a commentator, and I don't care what anybody says, man. He gets way too much flack. He is now the lead commentator of SmackDown, and he is doing a fantastic job. Don't forget either that even before he joined NXT, Cory Graves was smashing it on the independent scene, and he was seen as an up-and-coming star. So to be able to forget all of that and totally apply your skill to a different craft, well, it's a massive round of applause to me. And he will be the next Michael Cole. After Michael Cole goes, I got one word for that: good. Number 11, Luke Harper. So obviously today it's very hard to talk about Luke Harper, so let's just try and sum it up as best we can. He was an underrated gem that did phenomenal work no matter where he went. I mean, he showed that as part of the Wyatt family and as a tag team specialist alongside Eric Rowan when he went to AEW and finally got to show his personality, and as Brody Lee, my word, he was hilarious. Who the flub is Griff Garrison? I really do think the highest praise we can give him, though, is how his peers talk about him, because every person to the last one says that he was such a good dude, he was so funny, I loved him, he was just the best. And that's the memory that we should keep alive. And I tell you this, I miss Luke Harper / Brody Lee. He was doing some fine work. Number 10, Alexander Rusev. So his first name didn't last, but when Rusev called to the main roster, let's not muck around here, he totally smashed it. The foreign heel trope is certainly stupid today, but him and Lana still made the best of it, and for a good while he went on an undefeated streak. It was only till he ran up against John Cena when it ended. As soon as that did happen though, WWE got bored or something, they totally dropped the ball, to the point they released him, which was so damn dumb. And while when he does have matches in AEW, he is really good, we do have to ask the question, where on earth does he go? He still has lived the dream though, given that he was a young boy living in Bulgaria, wanted to do this. But we have to wait and see with Rusev / Mero. He has so much more to give, but he's never on television. But either way, he remains one of my favorites. He is the best. Number 9, Baron Corbin. So it's time to talk about another underrated warrior. Baron Corbin is really good. I mean, even when he was made an unfair scapegoat in 2019, it was only because he was doing his job. And then what did he do soon after? He went down to NXT because he understands how this works. And do not forget Broke Corbin. You can't just do Broke Corbin if you don't get wrestling. That character was hilarious. So I really do think that one day we're going to look at Baron Corbin and go, oh man, we did not give him the praise he did deserve. And also, if we are talking about the NXT system, he did so damn well. He came from the NFL, he learned a brand new craft, and now he is a mainstay of both the main roster and NXT. Who else can say that but Xavier Woods? So this is a similar one, because I ask you this, what can't Xavier Woods do? Because he did a decent job in NXT, which got him to the main roster in 2014. When he told everyone, listen, if you team me with Big E and Kofi Kingston, I will turn us into an amazing group, and he even bet his job on it. That's because he knew what he was doing. Here came the New Day. He's also always looking at the bigger picture, which is why he launched his YouTube show Up, Up, Down, Down, and he's hosting things outside of WWE, because Xavier Woods just understands the game. He never gives anything else but 100%. Also coming up to 10 years of the New Day, and they're most definitely a Hall of Fame act. And who do Kofi and Big E give credit to for starting this whole thing off? It was Xavier Woods. That's another guy we need to shout about more, because one day he will be gone. We will not have appreciated him enough. Number 7, Bray Wyatt. It's another guy which is difficult to talk about given that he did tragically pass away too early, so let's just keep it nice and simple. No one that has ever come out of the NXT system was as creative as one Bray Wyatt. I mean, Bray was able to find success even though the main roster booking totally worked against him, because the Eater of Worlds character lost, so went, all right, he went back to the drawing board and he came up with The Fiend. Who the hell comes up with The Fiend? It's absolutely incredible. So I really do think that if you want to call him NXT's most successful graduate, you can, because as dumb as it sounds, sometimes wrestling is not about the wrestling, it's about moments and how people make you feel. And nobody, I don't care man, gave you the same emotions in your tum-tum as Bray Wyatt. He is one of a kind, he's a Hall of Famer, and it totally sucks he did pass away when he did. He only just started this journey. He will forever be an all-time gem. Number 6, Charlotte. So let's not muck around here either. Charlotte Flair is one of the best NXT call-ups ever. I mean, her in-ring ability is totally unmatched, and yes, that meant sometimes WWE underpushed her and both overpushed her. But even recently as WrestleMania 39, she was rewriting the rule book, because that match with Rhea Ripley was absolutely brilliant. She's also a leading member of the 4 Horsewomen and has had tremendous feuds with the likes of Sasha Banks, Bayley, and Becky Lynch. And let's not forget that match she had down in NXT with Natalya. For a while, people said, oh my gosh, that's the best North American WWE women's match ever. So it's yet more proof that the system does work, so even though people like to get carried away, Charlotte Flair is a special talent. Number 5, Sasha Banks. Is Sasha Banks one of the best female performers in American wrestling history? Yes, she is. Now, there's so much noise about her these days, people forget how she broke out in 2014 and 2015. So go back and watch those matches. You'll just go, this is great. Banks was also associated with the company for 10 years before she did decide to take her own leave, where she has turned up in AEW, and from day one, she's felt like a star. Let's not forget either that when the WWE were going through those horrible pandemic times, who did they rely upon to keep the momentum up? It was Bayley. And it was Sasha Banks. As Mercedes Moné as well, she just signed a multi-million-pound contract with AEW. And I'm sorry, I don't care who you are, that doesn't happen by fluke. Number 4, Big E Langston. So in terms of modern-day favourites, Big E is right up there at the top. I think I actually love him. Due to his size, he was pushed as a monster down in NXT, where he had this undefeated streak and he became the NXT World Heavyweight Champion. But then when he got to main roster and joined the New Day, all of a sudden, he was allowed to showcase his stupid side as well. And there is no one more entertaining than that guy. His lovable and endearing nature too also led him to the Money in the Bank briefcase, which he cashed in to become the WWE Champion. And look, I know that WWE didn't do this the right way, but in terms of just feeling so happy for someone, this was the guy. Very sadly, a couple of years ago, Big E did land on his neck and had a terrible injury, which he's still coming back from. And while I'd love to see him in the wrestling ring again, what I want more than anything for the man is just for him to be happy, healthy, and continue to make me laugh, which he does do, I tell you. This guy is great. Number 3, Seth Rollins. So not only is Seth Rollins one of the most important people in the WWE ecosystem right now, before he joined NXT, he was Tyler Black, and everybody would point to him and go, I think we have a generational talent. Rollins has also admitted that when he was down in developmental, he had a huge chip on his shoulder, but he overcame that, he joined the Shield, and he went on just to become an absolutely mega heel, whereas today, he was in the main event of WrestleMania 40 Night 1. What hasn't he done? Rollins also never has a bad match, and is another guy that is so gonna go into the Hall of Fame one day. So yeah, if you need a poster child or an advert for NXT and how it can work, just go look at Seth Rollins. Number 2, Dean Ambrose. Or you can go look at him. I mean, he's kind of interchangeable with Seth Rollins for obvious reasons, because he joined NXT, he made everyone take notice, even Mick Foley was like, man, who's this guy? When he was put in the Shield, and from there he was off to the races. And yes, sure, maybe he did have to fight a little bit harder compared to his Shield teammates, but he still became the WWE Champion when he had that stupid heel turn, and he was so pissed off with how WWE operated, he left. Even then, though, he went to AEW and appeared at the first Double or Nothing show. And honestly, if you want to say that without him, All Elite Wrestling wouldn't have hit the heights that it did do, I think that's totally fair. People couldn't believe that the former Dean Ambrose, now Jon Moxley, had turned up and made such a fuss. It also means he's now basically been working at the top industry for 10 years. So this is another guy he could not have done more. Number 1, Roman Reigns. Say that, I mean, I suppose he could have done. He could be Roman Reigns. Now, the real-life Joe Anoa'i has had an amazing wrestling story because he was in FCW, where essentially he was playing a version of Tribal Chief, when he was totally miscast as the next babyface of the company, had to go through a bunch of nonsense before he did return during the pandemic. He did become the head of the table, and from there everyone was like, Roman Reigns is absolutely incredible. He's also obviously now going on one of the longest WWE Championship runs of all time, and nobody can ever take that away from him. But beyond all that, it's his matches, it's his character, it's the aura that he has around him. I mean, who has done better than Roman Reigns that started in NXT? The answer is no one. I mean, it's an even more incredible tale because, of course, again, for a huge part of his run, people didn't like him, but cream always rises to the top. And actually, you have to hold your hands up to WWE. I mean, again, they typecast him in completely the wrong way, but in terms of seeing the talent, my word, they hit that nail on the head and then some. That's right! Which brings us to the end of this ridiculously long list. And I probably made some mistakes in there because I am stupid, but like the video, share the video and subscribe. Click the video on the screen, which is also about NXT. There's a comment box down there. Let me know your favorites from the first run of NXT wrestlers, and maybe even mention some other people too, and we can get back to them at some point. Have a wonderful day, my friend. See you soon.